Leora had always believed love was the safest place to rest. Not because life was easy, but because Cairo's hands made it feel like it could be. In their small modern apartment above a busy street, where car horns and laughter mixed with the smell of roasted corn, he used to pull her close and whisper, "Even when the world is loud, I'll be your quiet." She would smile like she didn't need those words, but her heart would hold them like a secret prayer. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. The last morning she heard his voice, he was joking about how she folded towels like she was punishing the fabric. Leora threw a pillow at him, laughing, and he dodged it with the confidence of a man who thought tomorrow was guaranteed. He kissed her forehead before he left, one quick kiss, casual, ordinary, unremarkable. And later, when the phone rang, that ordinary kiss became the sharpest pain she had ever carried. The call came from an unknown number. A strained male voice asked, "Are you Mrs. Cairo Dane?" She stared at the screen as if it was lying. "Yes," she managed. "There's been an accident," the voice said, words dropping like stones. "Please come to Crestview General." Leora arrived with her hair half-tied and her shoes on the wrong feet. Hospital lights made everything look pale and cruel. A nurse guided her through corridors that smelled like antiseptic and fear. "He's an emergency," the nurse said gently, but Leora was already shaking her head. "No," she whispered. "Not him. Not Cairo." A doctor met her outside a curtain. His eyes were tired. Too tired. "Mrs. Dane," he began. "Don't say it," Leora pleaded, gripping the edge of the counter. "Please. Just let me see him. Let me talk to him." The doctor exhaled slowly, as if he was trying to soften the air before it hit her. "I'm sorry. We did everything we could." The world didn't shatter with a sound. It fell inward. Leora's knees buckled, and she would have crashed to the floor if a nurse hadn't caught her. Her mouth opened, but grief stole her voice. All she could do was stare, as if staring hard enough might rewind time. When they finally let her see him, Cairo looked smaller than he ever had. Still handsome, still familiar, but quiet in a way he'd never been. Leora brushed her fingers over his knuckles. "I'm here," she whispered. "You promised you'd be my quiet. Cairo, you promised." There were people who came after that, friends, co-workers, distant relatives, faces that blurred into one long line of pity. Leora smiled politely when she could. She accepted water she didn't drink, food she couldn't taste. But the sharpest visitors arrived on the third day, when Cairo's family walked in like they were coming to collect something that belonged to them. Ma Decca, Cairo's mother, wore grief like expensive perfume, strong, dramatic, designed to be noticed. Behind her trailed Cairo's younger brother, Joran, and sister, Tiva. Their eyes swept the apartment the moment they entered. "This place," Ma Decca said, looking around, "is full of his things." Leora blinked, confused. "It's our home." Ma Decca's mouth tightened. "It was his home before it became yours." Joran stepped forward, voice low. "We need to talk about Cairo's accounts." Leora's throat went dry. "Accounts?" Tiva crossed her arms. "Don't act innocent, Leora. You were married, yes, but you're not blood." The sentence hit like a slap. Leora stared at them, then down at her own hands. Her wedding ring still sat there like a promise nobody respected anymore. "I loved him," she said quietly. "I was his wife." Ma Decca waved her hand. "Love doesn't sign papers. We came for what is ours." "What are you talking about?" Leora's voice rose despite herself. "Cairo and I built." "You built?" Joran laughed, short and bitter. "With what? You were always between jobs. Cairo was the one carrying you." Leora felt heat rise behind her eyes. She had supported Cairo in ways money didn't measure. Late nights when his business struggled, prayers when his confidence broke, gentle words when he was drowning. But grief made her too tired to fight properly. "Why are you doing this now?" she asked. "He's barely gone." Ma Decca's eyes hardened. "Because death is expensive, and we will not let you swallow what he left behind." 2 days later, they returned with papers. Leora watched them slide documents across the table like they were serving her a sentence. "What is this?" she asked. "A family arrangement," Tiva said, tapping the page. "Cairo's property assets will revert to the family. That's how it should be." But Cairo never said. Joran leaned in. "Cairo said a lot of things. He also trusted the wrong people." Leora's chest tightened. "Are you saying he didn't trust me?" Ma Decca lifted her chin. "He was kind. Kind men get fooled." Leora's hands trembled as she read the words. It wasn't just money. It was everything. Their apartment. His car. His savings. Even the small insurance payout that was meant to keep her afloat while she learned how to breathe again. "You can't do this," Leora whispered. Tiva's voice turned sweet in a poisonous way. "We can. And we will. Sign." Leora stood abruptly, chair scraping. "No." Madeka's gaze turned cold. "Then we will do it the hard way." The hard way came fast. A week later, the landlord knocked and said the rent had been paid for months by an account now under review. The bank froze their shared account pending family dispute. Cairo's business partners stopped taking her calls. A man in a suit arrived with legal notices that made her eyes blur. Leora felt herself shrinking day by day, like a plant dying quietly in a room without light. One evening, after she'd cried until her ribs hurt, she found a message on Cairo's old phone that she hadn't been able to erase. It was a voice note he had sent her months earlier, a casual recording meant for a playful argument. "Leora, if anything ever happens to me," Cairo's voice said, warm and teasing, "you better not let anyone bully you. You hear me? You're stronger than you think. And I left you safe. You'll see. You'll see." The words were a puzzle and a comfort all at once. Safe? How? She went digging through drawers, files, old envelopes. Under the bed, she found a small locked metal box she had never noticed before. The key wasn't with it. Her heart hammered as if it recognized hope and didn't trust it. The next day, she visited Cairo's office, what was left of it. The receptionist avoided her eyes. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Dane," she murmured. Mr. Joran said. "I'm not here for permission," Leora said, surprising herself with the firmness of her own voice. In the storage room behind Cairo's desk, she found a framed photo of them at the beach. Behind it, taped to the back, was a tiny key. Her hands shook as she returned home and opened the metal box. Inside was a second phone, a small notebook, and a sealed letter with her name written in Cairo's handwriting. Leora sat on the floor, tears already falling before she even opened it. "My love," the letter began. "If you're reading this, it means I'm not there to say it to your face, and that breaks me. But listen to me. You are not helpless. Joran and Madeka, they have always been hungry. I prepared for their hunger. I put something aside quietly in your name. Not because I expected to leave, but because I refused to let anyone destroy you." Leora's breath caught. "There is an account under the name Leora Vane. Yes, your maiden name. The details are in the notebook. I also kept copies of documents they will try to twist. Please don't grieve alone. Find someone safe. And promise me you will live." Leora pressed the paper to her chest and sobbed, not only from pain, but from the fierce love in his planning. Even in death, Cairo had tried to protect her. The notebook contained numbers, contacts, and one name repeated more than once, circled in ink. Miran Holt. At the bottom, Cairo had written, "If you need help, Miran is solid. He owes me nothing, but he kept his word." Leora stared at that name for a long time. A stranger, tied to her husband's secret safety net. Someone Cairo trusted. Her heart didn't want new people. It wanted the old life back. It wanted Cairo. But life did not negotiate with grief. So, trembling, Leora picked up the second phone, turned it on, and dialed the first number in the notebook. It rang twice. A calm male voice answered. "Hello." Leora swallowed hard. "My name is Leora Dane," she said. "Cairo. Cairo told me to call you." There was a pause, one heavy, careful pause. And then the man's voice softened, as if he had been holding his breath for months. "Leora," he said quietly, "I was afraid this day would come. Are you safe?" Leora stared at the letter in her lap, at Cairo's handwriting, at the way love had tried to outlive death. "No," she whispered honestly. "But I want to be." "Then listen to me," Miran said, voice steady. "You're not alone. Not anymore." And in that moment, small, fragile, unexpected, Leora felt the first thread of something that wasn't grief. It wasn't happiness. It was possibility. Leora met Miran at a quiet cafe tucked behind a row of glass-fronted offices. The place smelled like cinnamon and fresh espresso, the kind of warmth that felt almost disrespectful to someone carrying a funeral inside her chest. She arrived early, mostly because she didn't know what else to do with her days anymore. When Miran walked in, she recognized him from nothing and everything at once. Tall, neat, calm eyes, the kind of face that didn't waste expressions. He wore a simple black shirt, sleeves rolled to his forearms, and he scanned the room like a man trained to notice exits. He stopped at her table, and for a second he just looked at her, really looked. Not at her clothes or her swollen eyes, but at the damage grief had done. "I'm sorry," he said. Leora blinked. "You didn't kill him." Miran sat slowly. No. But I knew him. And I know what it feels like when a good man leaves too early. Something in his voice made her believe him. They talked in careful pieces. He didn't push. He didn't ask for the details that still made her throat close. He asked practical questions. Where she was staying, whether she had food, whether anyone had keys to her apartment. His calm felt like a blanket she didn't deserve, but desperately needed. Then he slid a folder toward her. Cairo set up a trust structure, he explained. Not huge, but enough to keep you stable. It's legally yours. Under your maiden name, like he wrote. Leora's hands hovered over the folder. So he really did it. He did, Miran said. Because he knew them. Leora's eyes filled. Why didn't he tell me? Miran's gaze softened. Because he wanted you to love him, not his fear. Cairo didn't want you living suspicious. Leora looked away, swallowing. They've been calling me. Threatening me. Miran's jaw tightened. They can threaten all they want. The law doesn't run on noise. It runs on proof. He tapped the folder. And you have proof. Over the next weeks, Miran became a quiet presence in her life. Never demanding, never overstepping, always steady. He brought her groceries without making it charity. He drove her to meetings with lawyers. He taught her how to answer hostile questions without falling apart. And somehow, in the middle of all that, he also taught her how to laugh again. Small laughs that surprised her, like sunlight slipping through a cracked window. One evening, after a tense meeting where Madeka's lawyer tried to paint Leora as a manipulative outsider, Leora sat in Miran's car and finally broke. I'm tired, she whispered, staring out the window. I'm so tired of fighting people who should have been family. Miran didn't start the car. He just looked at her. Then don't fight them like family, he said. Fight them like strangers who tried to steal from you. Leora's lips trembled. Cairo's gone. And they're acting like I never mattered to him. Miran's voice lowered. You mattered. The problem is, greedy people don't accept love as evidence. They only accept what they can count. Leora turned to him, eyes wet. And what do you accept? Miran didn't answer immediately. He stared at the steering wheel like the truth was written there. When he finally spoke, his voice was careful. I accept what I can feel, he said. And I can feel that you've been carrying too much alone. Leora's heart thudded painfully. She looked away quickly. You're kind. I'm not trying to be, Miran said. I'm trying to be accurate. Something about that made her chest ache. Accurate. Like he was choosing truth over performance. She started noticing him in ways she hadn't allowed herself to notice anyone since Cairo. The way Miran always waited for her to enter a room first, like he was silently telling her she still deserved respect. The way he listened without interrupting. The way he never flinched at her tears. But love, real love, felt like betrayal. Leora hated herself for even thinking it. One night, after she'd had a nightmare so vivid she woke up shaking, she called Miran without thinking. When he arrived, she stood in the doorway hugging herself like she could keep her heart from falling out. I'm sorry, she whispered. I shouldn't have called. Miran stepped inside and closed the door gently behind him. Don't apologize for being human, he said. Leora's voice cracked. I keep hearing his voice. I keep thinking if I turn fast enough, he'll be there. Miran's expression softened into something almost painful. I know. She stared at him. How? Miran hesitated, then exhaled. Because I lost someone too, he said quietly. A long time ago. And grief, it becomes your shadow. Even when the sun is out. Leora's throat tightened. So why are you helping me? Miran looked at her, and this time his eyes didn't hide. Because Cairo saved me once, he admitted. Not with money. With courage. I promised him, if anything ever happened, I wouldn't let you get swallowed. Leora's breath caught. You loved him. Miran nodded once. Like a brother. Leora's eyes burned. And I loved him like air. Miran's voice softened. Then honor him by breathing again. That sentence broke something open inside her. She sank onto the couch, tears spilling, and Miran sat on the floor in front of her, close enough to ground her, far enough not to steal her space. He didn't touch her. He didn't try to fix her. He just stayed. Weeks turned into months. The court case grew uglier. Tiva spread rumors that Leora had been unfaithful. Joran tried to tamper with documents. Madeka cried in court, claiming Leora was bewitching men to steal what wasn't hers. But Leora, quiet Leora, began to change. Miran helped her dress for court not like a widow begging for mercy, but like a woman who still had bones in her spine. He taught her to answer questions without shaking. He reminded her that grief did not cancel her rights. And one day, after a brutal hearing, Leora stood outside the courthouse and realized something strange. She wasn't only surviving anymore. She was becoming. That evening, Miran took her to the rooftop of a quiet building. City lights blinked below like distant stars. A soft wind moved her hair. "I used to come here when things got heavy," he said. Leora hugged her arms. "Everything is heavy." Miran glanced at her. "Not you," he said. "You're learning how to carry it." They stood in silence for a long moment. Then Leora whispered, "Sometimes I feel guilty for feeling anything other than pain." Miran's voice was gentle. "Pain isn't a loyalty badge," he said. "It's just pain." Leora turned to him, and before she could stop herself, she said, What if I start loving again?" Miran's throat bobbed. "Then love again," he said softly. "But don't rush. And don't punish yourself." Leora's eyes filled. "I don't want to replace him." "You can't," Miran said. "Cairo is not replaceable. But you are still alive." Her heart hammered. She stepped closer without meaning to. Miran's voice went quieter. "Leora." She looked up at him. "I hate that my heart is still beating," she whispered. "Because it feels like it's leaving him behind." Miran lifted his hand slowly, stopping just before touching her cheek, asking permission without words. Leora leaned into his palm, and the contact felt like a confession. "I'm not asking you to leave him behind," Miran murmured. "I'm asking you to come forward." Leora closed her eyes, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she was drowning. Then her phone rang. She pulled back, startled. The screen showed a number she recognized. Madeka. Leora's stomach clenched. She answered with a steady voice she barely recognized as her own. "Hello." Madeka's voice was sharp. "So it's true. You're moving on." Leora swallowed. "This is not your business." Madeka laughed bitterly. "Everything that belonged to Cairo is my business. Including you." Leora's eyes narrowed. "I never belonged to you." Madeka's tone turned cold. "If you don't drop this case, I will make sure you leave this city with nothing. And don't think that man you're with will save you." Leora's hand tightened around the phone. "Try," she said quietly. "I'm done being afraid." She ended the call, chest heaving. Miran watched her carefully. "You okay?" Leora stared at the night sky, tears burning but not falling. "No," she said. "But I'm ready." Miran's eyes held hers. "Ready for what?" Leora's voice was steady. "To become the woman they never expected." And as the city wind wrapped around them, Miran reached for her hand, not to claim her, but to stand beside her. Leora laced her fingers with his. The heartbreak was still there. But so was the beginning of something dangerous and beautiful. The final hearing arrived like a storm that had been gathering for months. Leora walked into court wearing a simple navy dress and a calm expression that took every ounce of strength she had. Miran walked beside her, not holding her hand now. Court was a stage, and they would not give Madeka any extra story to twist, but his presence was a silent shield. Madeka sat across the room in dramatic black lace, eyes red, mouth already prepared for tragedy. Joran leaned close to her, whispering like a man confident he could bend reality with noise. Tiva stared at Leora with a sneer that said, "How dare you still stand?" Leora sat, hands folded, and waited. When the judge entered, the room rose. The air felt heavy with old anger and new courage. The opposing lawyer began first. He painted Leora as a woman who appeared out of nowhere, married Cairo, and benefited from his sudden passing. He spoke about family tradition, about inheritance customs, about how a widow may be cared for but should not control the legacy of blood. Leora listened, jaw tight. Then her lawyer stood. "Your Honor," the lawyer said, "this case is not about tradition. It is about legality, and about the deliberate attempt to dispossess a grieving spouse through intimidation, document manipulation, and financial coercion." Leora's pulse pounded. The lawyer submitted the trust documents, the copies Cairo had stored, the insurance policy terms, and bank trails that showed Joran's suspicious activity, attempts to redirect funds, to alter beneficiaries, to claim authority he did not have. Madeka's lawyer objected repeatedly. The judge overruled repeatedly. Then came the moment Leora feared most. "Mrs. Dane," the judge said, "you may speak." Leora rose slowly. Her legs felt like glass. She stepped into the witness space and faced the room. Madeka's eyes drilled into her as if hatred could push her backward. Leora took a breath. "My husband," she began, voice steady but quiet, "was not a wallet. He was a man. He loved his family, even when they hurt him. And he loved me, even when I was not perfect. Joran scoffed softly. Leora turned her gaze to him. You called me useless, she said. You said I contributed nothing. But I contributed love. I contributed loyalty. I contributed the kind of home a man runs to when the world is cruel. Tiva rolled her eyes. Leora's voice sharpened. And when he died, you didn't come to mourn him. You came to collect him. A murmur moved through the courtroom. Ma Decca pressed a hand to her chest theatrically. Lies, she whispered loudly. Leora looked at her. You told me I was not blood, she said. But I was his wife. And he made his choice. He chose to protect me because he knew what you would do. Ma Decca stood abruptly. How dare you speak against me? The judge banged the gavel. Sit down. Leora's hands trembled, but she continued. I didn't ask to be widowed, she said, voice cracking slightly. I didn't ask to wake up in a world where the person I loved is gone. But I did not deserve to be hunted for it. Her eyes burned. She forced herself not to cry. I loved him, she said. And I still do. Loving again does not erase him. It just proves that I am still alive. Her lawyer gently guided her back to her seat. Miran's eyes met hers for a moment, pride, grief, and tenderness all mixed together. Then the judge spoke words that landed like thunder. After reviewing the evidence, the court ruled in Leora's favor. The trust and account under her maiden name were affirmed as hers. The attempts to interfere were noted. Further investigation into forged signatures and financial manipulation was recommended. Ma Decca's face went stiff with shock. Joran stood up, furious. This is not fair. The judge's gaze was icy. Sit down. You have said enough. Outside the courthouse, reporters hovered like flies, hungry for drama. Leora walked past them without stopping, chin lifted, heart shaking with relief she could barely contain. She reached the steps and finally exhaled, like she had been holding her breath for months. Miran came closer. You did it, he murmured. Leora swallowed, eyes glistening. We did it. Miran's hand hovered, then gently held her elbow, guiding her away from the crowd. Are you okay? He asked. Leora let out a laugh that sounded half like a sob. I don't know what I am, she admitted. I feel like I won and still lost. Miran's voice softened. That's grief, he said. It doesn't disappear because you got justice. Leora nodded slowly. I wish Cairo could have seen it. Miran's eyes warmed. He did, he said quietly. Not with his eyes. With his planning. With his love. He left you the tools, because he believed you would survive. They drove to the sea that afternoon. Not the loud, crowded beach of their old dates, but a quieter stretch where the waves came in slow and steady, like the earth was breathing. Leora stepped out of the car and walked toward the water. Miran followed, hands in his pockets. She stared at the horizon, tears finally falling. I kept thinking the only way to honor him was to suffer forever, she whispered. Like pain was proof. Miran stood beside her. Pain is proof that you loved, he said. But life is proof that you're still here. Leora turned to him, voice trembling. And you came into my life when I didn't want anyone. Miran's gaze held hers. I didn't come to replace him, he said. I came because you shouldn't have been alone. Leora took a shaky breath. I'm scared, she confessed. If I love you, I might lose you too. Miran's expression softened into something heartbreakingly gentle. Then love me anyway, he said. Not because it's safe. Because it's real. Leora's chest tightened. Say it again. Miran stepped closer, careful, like he was approaching a wound he didn't want to reopen. Love me anyway, he repeated. Let love be your courage. Leora stared at him, and the world tilted, because she felt it. Not the loud, reckless love of beginning, but the steady love of people who have survived fire. A love that didn't pretend pain never happened. She reached for his hand, fingers trembling. Miran held her like she was something precious, not something damaged. And when he kissed her, it wasn't desperate. It was patient. It felt like a promise made slowly, with full understanding of what grief costs. Later, as the sun faded and the sky deepened into evening, Leora sat on a rock near the water, holding a small folded paper she had brought with her, Cairo's letter. She read it again, not to reopen the wound, but to remember the love that had shaped her. Miran sat beside her. Do you want to talk to him? He asked softly. Leora nodded, eyes wet. She faced the sea as if Cairo was somewhere inside it. Cairo, she whispered, voice shaking. I'm still here. They tried to erase me, but they couldn't. You were right. I'm stronger than I thought. She swallowed hard. I miss you every day, she continued. And I will always love you. But I'm learning to breathe again. I'm learning that my heart can carry grief and still hold hope. Miran's hand found hers. Leora squeezed his fingers. I'm not the woman they expected, she whispered. I'm becoming the woman you believed I could be. The wind moved gently like a quiet answer. Months later, Leora opened a small foundation in Cairo's name. Support for widows navigating legal battles and financial abuse. The first time a crying woman sat across from her and said, "They're taking everything," Leora reached over the table and held her hand the way Miran once held hers. "You're not alone," Leora told her. "Not anymore." And when Ma Decca tried to contact her again, suddenly polite, suddenly motherly, Leora didn't answer. Some doors were not meant to reopen. Some love was meant to be honored from a distance. On a warm evening, Miran stood in Leora's new office doorway, watching her sign documents with calm confidence. "Look at you," he said. Leora smiled softly. "Look at us," she corrected. Miran stepped closer. "Do you ever feel guilty?" he asked. Leora paused, then shook her head. "No," she said, "because my love story didn't end when I became widowed. It just changed shape. And I refuse to apologize for surviving." Miran kissed her forehead. "That's the woman they never expected," he murmured. Leora smiled through shining eyes, and as she looked into the life she rebuilt, stitched together with heartbreak, courage, and unexpected love, she finally understood. Betrayal had not been her ending. It had been her turning point. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from.